Oh, why hello, old sport. I didn't see you there. I'm not really sure why I gave Gatsby a British accent. The Great Gatsby. So The Great Gatsby is based off a book that came out in the 20s. It's considered a literary classic. Most high schools have you read it for English class, but Spark Notes. But the Spark Notes can only tell you so much, so I was kind of interested in this movie. For those of you who don't know the plot, it's taken from the perspective of Nick Carraway. He's a young Bond salesman who's just moved to New York. His cousin Daisy lives there too. And his house is right next to the Gatsby mansion, which is owned by, you guessed it, Gatsby. And every night this guy's having these lavish parties and people just show up to them that he doesn't even know. Nick is the only person that ever gets an invitation, and so he goes and he meets Gatsby. And he finds out that Gatsby has this little proposition for him. Now, if you're a really hardcore fan of the book and you're wondering if this movie follows the book closely, yeah, it does. It's almost like word for word what the book says. However, does it capture the spirit and the emotion of the book? Maybe. I mean, all the performances in this movie were great. Leonardo DiCaprio was awesome. Tobey Maguire was fine as his character. Joel Edgerton's character is like the bad guy in this movie, and he's really good at getting you to hate him, so he did awesome. But the real star of this movie is director Baz Luhrmann. If you've seen Moulin Rouge or Romeo and Juliet, you know that Baz Luhrmann is a really over-the-top director. All of his shots are really big and fancy, and that really worked for the party scenes in this movie, but for everything else, it kind of felt really fake. Like all of the outside scenes, he wanted to get this really polished look, so we just used a green screen. Yeah, if you're not a fan of green screen, this movie is going to make you want to rip your hair out. Like when Gatsby first gets introduced, you see him off camera and Nick's talking to him, but you don't know it's Gatsby yet. And then he finally turns around and he goes, "Oh, sorry, old sport. I'm Gatsby." And then these fireworks just erupt out of, like, the background. Arguably, yeah, the cheesiest thing I've seen all year. But that's Baz Luhrmann's style, so you can't go into this movie and not expect that kind of stuff. I was able to roll with a lot of Luhrmann's personal touches, but the one thing that really dragged this movie down was the soundtrack. I mean, it's set during the roaring 20s, you know, jazz music's getting popular, and apparently Jay-Z music is too. Yeah, there's a lot of Jay-Z music in this movie. And it's really weird, because they'll start going from like this swing jazz feel to straight into like a dubstep Jay-Z song. It feels like they're trying to mix like the old with the new, but it's not done in that like artistic, really cool Skyfall type of way. It's done in that really awkward Smurfs kind of way. I mean, the two things kind of just clash, and it just feels weird. If they would have just stuck with 20s music, I think this movie would have been a lot better. I thought the score on this movie was pretty good though. The underlying theme of this movie, which I don't remember the name of the song, but that song, they did play it in the score a lot, and it did kind of get annoying after a while. It wasn't like My Heart Will Go On in Titanic, where it was kind of just put in a little bit sparsely just for the emotion. It was put in pretty much every scene that Gatsby and Daisy were together. Like the first time I heard it, I was like, oh, that's a cool song. I'm going to go on Spotify and listen to that when I get home. And then after they play it over and over and over again in the score, yeah, no. Now, Tobey Maguire's character in this movie is really interesting because he's supposed to be us in the novel. He's experiencing all of this craziness for the first time, just like we are. And what's something that's cool that Fitzgerald did that they went with in this movie is that before the events of the book, Tobey Maguire's father tells him that he can't pass judgment on people. He has to try to see the best in people, so when he sees all this stuff that he hates, he can't do anything about it because he can't pass judgment. And we can't do anything about that either because we're not in the story. So when you see Tobey Maguire's character frustrated, you feel frustrated too. And so you're really able to connect with the fact that you hate everyone in this movie except for Tobey Maguire and Gatsby. Gatsby, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, he was awesome also. DiCaprio's like one of the best actors out right now anyways. Yet he has still never gotten an Oscar. One of the great mysteries of life. Where is DiCaprio's Oscar? I mean, not for this movie. Give it to him for like Django or something. But I think there were some scenes in the book that they enhanced in this movie because of Leonardo DiCaprio's great acting. And he was a really likable, down-to-earth guy in this movie too. Like there's a scene near the end of this movie where him and Nick are talking and you really get the sense that Gatsby is actually a really genuine human being. Even though he throws these gigantic parties, he doesn't actually partake in the parties. He's just standing there. And you can see that the parties don't actually reflect his personality because he's a really cool guy. Cliff Springer I thought was a little weird. He's definitely not what I pictured him to be in the book. He's like this hipster guy that plays on these pianos. He looks like Ed Helms from the Lorax. Yeah, he was a little weird. It didn't bring the movie down, but it didn't bring it up either. But overall, The Great Gatsby gets all the events from the book down, but it is definitely style over substance for me. I'm going to give The Great Gatsby a C+. It's still a good movie. See it at matinee price, see it in 2D, you'll enjoy it a lot more. So The Great Gatsby, did you guys see it? What did you guys think of the book too? Or what did you think of the book versus the movie? Comment down below, let me know about that. And thank you for watching. If you guys like this review, you can subscribe to see more.